Okay, so we are live on Facebook, and hopefully you should be able to see and hear me okay. I think I've got the hang of it now. I'm on day 5, so it's only taken 3 or 4 days to get the actual thing to work between Zoom, because our connection on Facebook has just been a little bit on the dodgy side. So thank you for comments and a couple of emails that I've had, which is basically talking about what we've been talking about this week. So why have we done the week's worth of information? And probably the biggest reason is that we generally get people who come to us and say that, you know, they've had a problem with their body, or they've had back pain, or they've had an issue, and the problem is that it's not really being addressed fully. They might have had something that's helped them for a day or two, or they might have something that gives them some release for a little while, but they haven't really had anything that's given them a long-term results. And also, I think, you know, from a medical professional stance, there's definitely a lot of information out there. So there's a lot of people that can Google. You know, you've got access to the internet, you've got access to Google, you've got access to, you know, Facebook groups, recommendations. People say, I've had a back problem, I've had this, and it's worked really well. And then other people have had this, and that's worked really well. And we can all do things that, you know, feel good for us or feel that will work for us. The bottom line is, though, really, it's that subgroup of people who seem to slip through the net, where, you know, you might have seen the doctor and the doctor says, look, we've got a problem here. There's this showing on your scan, you know, you've got a disc issue, or you've got a facet joint issue, or, you know, you've hurt yourself, you need to stop doing what you are doing. And that sometimes goes to the extreme where people stop doing everything. And then, as we've sort of tried to explain through the week, the less you do, the more sore your joints seem to get. The less you do, the weaker you get. The less you do, the more your posture becomes adjusted. The less you do, the more your muscles get weaker. The less you do, the more sort of adaptations and compensations you get. So, you know, the main thing is that if you are struggling or you are in pain, there is a whole management strategy that you can access. You just have to be doing the right one. And, you know, from a client point of view coming in, we have a lot of clients that come in through the front door. So they'll obviously walk in and say, look, I've got a problem, I've got this, I've got that, you know, I've tried this, it hasn't worked, what can you do? And there's a whole heap of things we can do, but the biggest thing is that you have to actually want to change. So you have to actually buy into doing something different. So I was listening to a podcast, I think it was early this morning or yesterday, and it was, you know, about somebody who bakes a cake, and the cake still isn't the same cake as they want it. It doesn't taste quite right, but they still do the same things. They're still doing the same ingredients. They're not varying how they do it. They're not varying, you know, which order they do it, and they're still coming out with the same end result, but nothing's really changing in that process. They're just doing it at different times and what have you. And you know, managing somebody's pain and managing a back problem, or to be honest, managing any problem is crucial in terms of not everybody is the same. You know, you could have an elite football player and you could have a 90-year-old lady, and what you do with them might be similar, but you're doing it for different reasons. So, you know, you might have somebody who is very, very fit and healthy but can't move, and somebody who is normally very sedentary but can move. And it's really taking into account what your history is with your spine, what the history is around your back, what the history is for your injury, and then placing that on what we find in your assessment as to what we then need to do with you moving forward. So, you know, if you are normally somebody who sits all day and then you've suddenly gone on a fitness burst and you've decided that you're running 5 days a week and your back's sore, that's going to be a little bit different to somebody who, you know, is normally very fit and active and happens to have slipped and hurt themselves. What we're going to do is a little bit different. So how do outside factors influence? Well, we talked about your outside factors really being pain. So your pain and the pain sensitive structures. So day one, we talked about pain sensitive structures in the back, and basically all your ligaments can feel pain, your muscles, your tissues, your joints, bone obviously can feel pain as well, and then the outer third of your discs can feel pain. So anything that affects those or sensitizes those, or if you've overstretched them or had an injury, if you have some inflammation in the area, you're going to be sensitive to that inflammation, and that's going to feel pain. Same as when you go over on your ankle, or you overstretch your muscle, or you overuse a muscle and you've got some soreness, that's going to sensitize and feel pain. So how we then react to that pain is going to change, and depending on what has happened. So as we were talking before with the mechanisms of injury, normally within 3 months that's your healing time. So if you've had a minor soft tissue injury, 3 to 6 weeks. If you've had a more major, sort of semi-major injury, 6 weeks to 12 weeks, so 3-month period. Same if you've had a very slow healing time with tendon issues and major muscle pulls, it's about that 12 weeks, and about 12 weeks if you've had bone damage or disc damage as well. So that's 6 to 12 weeks time frame. That really then governs the healing time of tissues. So your inflammatory response, your repair sort of time frame, and also the regeneration and remodeling time frame is in there as well. So at the end of 3 months, you know, your active process of healing has finished, and you need to then be doing something on top of that, or having instruction on top of that to then move that forward. If for any reason that hasn't changed, or if for any reason after that 3 month period you're not moving well, that's when we get more into that chronic cycle, and then we've had a few of the adaptations or compensations that start to arise. So, you know, you might have strained your disc, or you might have had a bit of an inflamed disc, you might have strained your joint, you might have strained your ligament, you might have strained a muscle, but after 12 weeks, that's not necessarily what's causing the problem anymore. That happens to have been an injury that has settled, or there might be some scarring around it, but what you're left with is the compensations that have happened as a result of that injury. So number one, what we talked about, your posture might be affected. So if you've been sore here, you might lean away from that posture. So I just move that down a little bit. So if I'm sore in this side of my spine, I might lean away to try and give that spine a little bit of a bit of gap, but it means this side's working harder and this side's on a stretch. So if I keep walking like that, I'm going to start getting some problems on this side because it's getting pinched, and on this side because it's not working as hard. Similarly, if I have a difference where I'm not moving as well, and I'm like this all the time, it means that that side of my spine is stretched and I'm losing flexibility. So I might not be able to go that way anymore because this bit started to get tight. So that's the second thing that would need addressing. The second or the third aspect was if I stay in that position here, these muscles got short. So that's that flexibility and in muscle imbalance issue. And these are working on a length, but they might actually be weak. So now I've got a disconnect with the strength and the weakness aspect of those tissues as well. And then the last thing that we obviously needs to sort of be addressed is obviously how that then varies with your function. You know, if you're leaning over to the side all the time, it affects how you move. So you're going to find you might get leg issues, you might get neck issues because you're compensating that way. So my head has to stay upright. If I lean that way, my head doesn't come with me. My head's got to stay upright as I move. So it means this side of my neck is squashing down a little bit as well. And then another aspect on top of that is your core strength and your ability to then move and function. We need the body to stay relatively centered and relatively mobile so that we can then move around that area. If I'm in this position here, how I move starts to become affected because I won't have as much range, and then I become very fixed. So over time, I've lost posture. My posture becomes a little bit what we call dysfunctional. It's just different to how it was, which is a compensation. I lose some of my flexibility because some muscles are working and they're holding me, and other muscles aren't working and they're stretched. So that flexibility issue means that I'm a little bit more stiff and I don't move as much. So I might rotate that way very well. Same, I can bend that way very well, but then I can't go back that way because I'm not used to it and this side's got tight. Similarly with the muscle strength, My muscle strength is going to be altered. The balance of that muscle is going to be altered because some are working harder and some don't work anymore, and obviously my core strength. And if you are only addressing one of those issues, which is what we find is common. People say, you know, I know I need to get my core stronger. I know that's going to help my back, and, you know, great, that it will. However, if you're trying to strengthen a core that's on a weak core, that's also on a posture that's not quite right, combined with muscle imbalances that aren't quite right, then you are going to run into problems because you're moving something that is not quite in alignment. And that doesn't mean that anything's out. You know, people think, oh, my back's out or this is out. It's just that your posture has adapted and changed. The muscles and the soft tissues and everything around that has adapted and changed. And that needs to be redressed so that you're working effectively. And if you're thinking, liken that to a tyre. So, you know, most of us drive and the tyres wear out as they drive, and you'll notice as you're driving, if the tyre's not quite aligned, there's a bit of a wobble, or you'll notice that you get a flat or that one side's wearing down. So what we do is we go and get a realignment of the tyre, or if the tyre happens to burst or it happens to get a flat, we change the tyre or fix the tyre, and then we realign. And that very similar things happen with the body. You know, the body's at its most efficient when it's moving well and it's moving optimally. That's why all of these athletes that are at their optimum health and their optimum fitness and their optimum performance, when you look at it, they all look effortless. It's not like they're running like this all the time. They're actually running and they're very efficient as they run. They haven't got a lump or they haven't got a limp, or it's not an awkward run. It looks very fluid. It looks very natural. And you can definitely see those ones who haven't quite got that as well, because, you know, they're the ones where it's like, oh, they're looking tired, oh, it looks like an effort, or they're working really hard. And the ones who are that more elite and they are more at the peak, they're the ones that, you know, they just look like the Duracell bunny. They're just going to keep going and going and going. So from a alignment point of view, we need to address that with the body, whether you're in pain or not, because if you're off center, you're going to be sore and it's going to be harder for you to get that alignment correct. So how does that work? To be honest, it's really a case of what do you want to do? I've been a physio for nearly 30 years now, and from how I managed people, you know, when I was a new physio compared to when I was 5 years out, compared to when I was 20 years out, compared to where I am now, all that knowledge just builds and builds and builds. So, you know, when I'm looking at somebody, I'm not looking at, okay, you've got back pain there, let's fix that. I'm actually looking at them going, okay, well, your pain's there, but that makes sense because you've got a lead with this and you're here and you're tight. And when we're looking at you, you move this way, and the muscles don't look like they're working uniformly. They're all looking at, you know, we've got a whole heap of things that are going on in our heads. Similarly, if you find that, you know, you think my muscles are tight, I'm just going to get a massage to release it, and you feel that feels good and it feels great, but then 2 days later you're back to square one. What you're doing is relieving the symptoms of that muscle that feels tight, so you feel that it's a bit freer and you feel a bit less restricted, but then nothing's changing for that background to change. So similar to the tie, you're sort of solving the tie problem, but you're not realigning it anymore. Similar with, you know, people who find that they do muscle strength and they think, you know, I'm going to get my core stronger, I'm going to go and I'm fitness and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do boot camp, and they might find that actually they do start to feel better, because instead of the joints and everything taking the load, what happens is the muscles start to give you that little bit of support. But again, if you don't address what's going on underneath and you don't change the bits that you're changing, and, you know, address the posture or the little kinks and quirks that you seem to adapt as you've had pain over time, what will happen is that typically I can do 2 sessions of boot camp or 2 sessions in the gym, but if I try and push it anymore, then my back gets really sore. You know, I find that I can, you know, run 5Ks twice a week, but if I try and do a 3rd session, or if I try and run 7Ks, then my back gets really sore. So what we've got again is like a loading issue where the actual scale of what you can do has changed because your body's not able to sustain that. It's already working hard, and that's what we were talking about earlier. If your core isn't supporting you, so you've got good internal deep structure to allow all the upper big muscles on top to help you, well then that core structure means that being deficient, your big muscles are doing that job as well. So they can probably do that job 2 days a week, but on the third day they just get, nah, I'm out. I don't want to do that anymore. And then you get full. So the thing for that is to be aware that some muscles are doing too much and they just fatigue. It's like, you know, a repetitive strain injury. We just get too fatigued. Other muscles start to come on top. So, you know, going back to those runners that they just look nice and easy and everything looks nice and fluid and they look like they could run for miles. And then you have others that are and everything's up here because they're trying to use their shoulders to help them as well as everything else, and they're recruiting other muscles to try and help them do the job that their deeper muscles aren't doing quite as well. So if that sort of gives you a little bit of analogy around it, that is what's going on. So probably in a nutshell, back pain, especially if it's long-term back pain, and you know, that could go for posture pain, neck pain, any sort of type of pain that's been there for a long time and it's been there for a while. So we're not talking our acute injuries where, you know, you've hurt it, you've tripped over, you've strained your spine and it's back to normal and, you know, you just tweaked a muscle. We're talking about those where you've hurt yourself, it's not quite ever gone back to the same. It flares up every now and again, maybe every 6 months you get a problem and now it's every 3 months, and instead of being there for 2 days, it's now there for a week, and instead of it being for a week, now it's every couple of weeks and takes longer to get better, and then you sort of find yourself into that I'm sore every day and then I'm sore all day every day. They're the ones where you naturally need to address on multi-levels. You know, that you're not ever going to get results unless you are looking at all the different aspects of what needs to happen to change that. So it's not just muscle spasm, it's not just pain, it's not just inmobility, it's not just lack of flexibility, it's not just posture, it's all of those plus how you function on top, plus what your body can do now and what you want it to do, and the discrepancy of here to here and what needs to happen to get you here. And that's when back pain management is successful. And is it successful in a lot of cases? Yes. You know, there's so many people that we sort of see who have, you know, they'll chat and they'll say, look, I've hurt myself and, you know, it doesn't help. And we look at them and say, yes, we can definitely help you. But because they've had bad experiences or because they haven't had positive outcomes previously, because they haven't addressed all these different factors, they've just addressed one and expected it to work. People aren't that keen to go into it, and you know, we get that if you've had a bad experience or you've spent a lot of time and effort and what have you to get that right, you're very reluctant to move forward. However, from a realistic point of view, if you want to change and you want to be pain-free, or you want to be, instead of 8 out of 10, you want to be 5 out of 10, instead of 5 out of 10, you want to bring it down to 2 out of 10, instead of getting pain every day, you want pain every third and fourth day. If you want that to happen for you, then you have to make a decision that you are going to change something, and that has to be a proactive decision that, you know, same as going back to baking that cake. If you're still doing the same thing, you're going to get the same outcome. You need to be doing something different. You need to be changing something in that mix to get that to be different at the end of the day. And that's what we're really good at. So hopefully, you know, obviously you don't need to come to us if you have back pain, but you should be, when you do see somebody who is helping you, you want to be out and you want to know that if I do this, this happens. I get my pain here because this has happened. I get pain like this and this is what I do about it. If I stand this way, it's going to hurt me. If I stand this way, I'm going to be better. If I get pain here, I can ease my pain by doing this. If I get pain here or I get pain here, I can use a ball against the wall to release it, so that you have pain A and you do this for pain A. You have problem B and you do this for problem B. You have this and you should be able to do this. It shouldn't be that you've got a remit of 20 exercises and you go through every one and then you hopefully one of them helps. There should be something specific that addresses each issue, and each of those should be building on something that brings you. So you're starting here and you're ending here and you're constantly improving. Yes, you will have a setback along the way. So yes, we'll get so far and you might have a little bit of a slip. You get so far and you might have a little bit of a slip. But on the general run of things, you should be on the improve and things should be changing that are helping you improve. And if it's not, that's when we need to rethink. So probably that's it really. If we're managing people, we want to know where you're at now. We want to know what's happened with you now. We also want to know where you want to be. We want to know, what have you done in the past that's helped? What have you done in the past that hasn't helped? What do you get relief with? When you're sore, what do you do? What happens when you're worse? What have you done? Like, what are you avoiding? What are you deliberately making a conscious effort not to do because you know it will make things worse? What do you deliberately do to try and help yourself? And that's the kind of thing that you actually want to then tie in with how we function and how we manage. So if anyone has a question, the purpose of this week was to really just raise awareness that you might have chronic pain. You might have pain that has been there for a long time. It doesn't mean you have to live with that. You know, we all have the right to be as mobile as we can, as pain-free as we can, as functional as we can, as active as we would like to be. And how we get there might vary, but because you've had a hurt back or a disc problem or a that problem or you've rolled your ankle, it doesn't mean that that's it for life. There is always something that can be done that can change how you feel. There's always something that can be done that can help how you feel, and you've just got to find the right person that's able to work with you to achieve that. And if it doesn't work, and I don't say that we work with absolutely 100% of our clients, obviously there's some people we can't help, but on the general whole there is the majority of people that we can get some deal of change in, because it's changing how you approach things and changing how you're doing things. And also from a client point of view and from your perspective as a client or as somebody in pain, it's being able to understand the why. Most people are, why am I sore? Why does this happen? Why if I do this am I in pain? If we can explain that to them and say, this hurts and you're sore because your posture is causing compression. And when you stand like this, it's going to hurt no matter what you do. Nothing is going to change until you change that posture or you take pressure off it. It's like pulling your thing back and saying that hurts. And you just keep holding it and it still hurts. It's not going to hurt until you stop. So that's what we're after when we're doing things, and that's what we're after when we're trying to change things. So hopefully if that helps you, and if you're interested in learning more, then feel free to flick me an email at info@corefusion.net.au. We obviously see people in person, and we obviously have a couple of online services as well for people who might want a little bit of help that's not quite able to come to us in person. But or feel free to send us a message through Facebook. But hopefully at the end of all that, you might have something that to walk away with that will give you hope, or might have something that walk away with that could help you. So thanks for listening.